Fructose has engendered a bad reputation among those who are into fitness and bodybuilding. Many articles that you find on the web or in whatever magazines that still exist and in YouTube videos, they warn against consuming fruit because of its allegedly high fructose content. But fructose is a natural sugar, and the amounts found in fruit are relatively small. It's something like most fruits have about maybe 5% fructose. Fruit is composed mostly of water and fiber, along with a couple of small amounts of nutrients. They're not just teeming with fructose as people would have you believe. You would have to consume very, very large amounts of fruit to have any problems with fructose. And even then, the natural fiber content of the fruit will modify the metabolism of the contained fructose content. So when you eat whole fruit, it's not that bad for you unless you eat a ton of it, which most people never do. Now, fruit juices is another matter. Fruit juice is basically processed fruit where you have the fiber removed. So when you drink a lot of fruit juice, now you're getting the fructose in a basically refined form, and that could be a problem. Juices, for that reason, have a much greater tendency to either inhibit fat loss or actually promote fat loss compared to fruit. In fact, in my Applied Metabolics newsletter, I wrote an article a while back about how eating fruit, contrary to popular belief, I listed all the scientific reasons of how fruit can actually help you lose body fat rather than gain body fat. So it's a huge myth that fruit is bad for you or that it makes you fat. It's just garbage. Fruit has a lot of natural elements in it, compounds, flavonoids, polyphenols, that aren't even in supplement form. But that's another topic, and I also discussed that in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. Right now, I want to talk about fructose, and in particular, the most refined form of fructose, which is high fructose corn syrup. It's basically fructose. High fructose corn syrup is a refined form of sugar. It's similar to table sugar or sucrose. High fructose corn syrup is derived. High fructose corn syrup is derived itself from corn syrup, where they add fructose to it, basically. Similarly to table sugar or sucrose, it is composed of, that is, high fructose corn syrup is composed of two simple sugars, what they call in scientific terms monosaccharides. And that would be fructose and glucose. That's what composes sucrose or table sugar, and that's what composes high fructose corn syrup, and they're in similar proportions. So you could say that high fructose corn syrup is basically very similar to simple table sugar. Yet why does high fructose corn syrup have so much of a worse reputation? Well, the main problem with high fructose corn syrup is that it's found in many processed foods. I'll list a couple of them in a couple of minutes. And because of that, it's easy to consume too much of it. It's ubiquitous. It's all over the place in processed foods. If you don't eat strictly natural foods, if you eat natural foods, you'll be getting mostly natural fructose, which is like a different animal. And I just want to point out at this juncture, in case I forget, that a lot of the effects of fructose, not necessarily high fructose corn syrup, but fructose, the natural sugar, a lot of the effects on the body depend on how active you are. A lot of the studies that suggest that fructose is bad for health, they involve sedentary people or sedentary animals that don't move, they don't do any exercise. When you're physically inactive, fructose in large amounts could definitely be a problem for the same reasons that high fructose corn syrup is a problem, which I'll get to in a minute. My point being here that if you're active, fructose in amounts up to 5 ounces of pure fructose a day is going to have no negative effects on health at all. Not at all. And believe me, 5 ounces of fructose is a lot. You'd have to eat a ton of fruit to get that much pure fructose. So don't believe the garbage about fruits and all that stuff and how bad fructose is. A lot of it, again, applies to sedentary, inactive people. When you're active, you'll burn up the fructose as an energy source. Also, I also want to add that in sports drinks, they found a couple of years ago that if you do a 4-to-1 ratio of glucose to fructose, you get an actual greater uptake of of carbohydrate in the body than glucose alone. The reason for that being that glucose and fructose have two different carriers. These are kind of protein carriers that carry them into the body. Glucose works on something called GLUT4. That's what carries into muscle. And fructose actually works with what they carry called GLUT5. Because of the fact that you have these two different, let's say, carbohydrate carriers, you can actually consume more carbohydrate than you would if you ate, let's say, glucose alone, because it basically two separate carriers. So it's very good for somebody that needs to get additional carbohydrates in their body. And this is kind of the new science of sports drinks. You don't want to have more than 6% glucose or in any type of sports drink, 6 to 8%, because it'll cause gastrointestinal problems, especially fructose in large amounts, and also it'll actually delay the uptake of fluids, which is particularly dangerous if you're training in a warm or hot environment. The main problem with the main problem with high fructose corn syrup, again, it's found in many processed foods, and because of that, it's easy to consume too much of it. There are two basic types of high fructose corn syrup. One of them is called high fructose corn syrup 90, and as the name implies, that's 90% fructose. You don't see that very often. It's sickeningly sweet. It's disgustingly sweet. They don't use that in foods. Instead, the other type of high fructose corn syrup is what's used. It's called high fructose corn syrup 55. And again, as the name implies, it consists of 55% fructose and 42% glucose. In comparison, table sugar or sucrose consists of 50% fructose and 50% glucose. So you can see the proportions between high fructose corn syrup, which is admittedly a refined sugar, and sucrose is very similar, but there is a difference, and this is where there's a couple of differences actually. One major difference between sucrose and high fructose corn syrup is that high fructose corn syrup is liquid. It contains 24% water, whereas table sugar or sucrose is dry and granulated. Another major difference, and this does make a difference, in terms of chemical structure, the fructose and glucose in high fructose corn syrup is not bound together like in granulated table sugar or sucrose. And this is important because it changes the absorption characteristics. In other words, normally fructose is a much slower absorbed sugar than glucose or even sucrose, because it goes through a different absorption pathway in the liver. In other words, it's much slowly absorbed, and this is actually considered a feature of fructose, the fact that it doesn't hit you that fast, and because of that, it doesn't cause much of an initial insulin reaction. However, the sucrose is the two sugars that compose sucrose are bounded together. It's called a disaccharide. Whereas in high fructose corn syrup, they're not bound, they're free. And because of that, the free fructose increases the absorption of glucose faster than normal, just as it does in sports drinks. That could be a problem, because now you're getting a very rapid absorption of glucose, which might not be good because it raises your blood sugar very high, and it can cause problems for some people. Gram for gram, high fructose 55 is slightly higher levels of fructose than regular sugar. Again, the proportions are a little bit higher in high fructose corn syrup, but the difference is very small and not particularly relevant from a health perspective. The main problem with consuming excess high fructose corn syrup is that it tends to convert into fat in the liver. That's the real problem, because fructose in excess is readily converted into triglycerides, which is fat in the liver, and that can produce what they call non-alcoholic fatty liver. That's epidemic right now. It's silent. It's a silent problem. You don't know you have it unless you undergo medical tests like ultrascans of the liver. 20 million Americans are walking around with non-alcoholic fatty liver. What's the problem with it? Non-alcoholic fatty liver is a precursor for liver cirrhosis. Now, liver cirrhosis, you might associate with alcoholics. Basically, liver cirrhosis is a scar, or people who have hepatitis C. Liver cirrhosis basically is scar tissue of the liver, and liver cirrhosis is a precursor for liver failure or liver cancer. So non-alcoholic fatty liver is a serious problem. High fructose consumption is also linked to insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. Research has also found that excess fructose can increase liver fat to a greater extent than equal amounts of glucose. In other words, fructose is actually stored in the liver as fat faster than glucose, which is the type of sugar found in the blood. Now, it's also true that from a positive aspect, fructose is converted into liver glycogen more rapidly than glucose. And that's a good thing because it helps you recover between workouts. And that's one of the one of the advantages of fructose. It is converted into glycogen more rapidly than other types of sugar. When comparing equal doses of high fructose corn syrup and regular sugar, research shows this is no difference in feelings of fullness, insulin response, leptin levels, or effects on body weight. Fructose also promotes visceral fat formation. Again, excess amounts. Visceral fat is the deep-lying abdominal fat that you can't see it. It surrounds organs. It's considered by far, from a health standpoint, the most dangerous type of fat. It's closely associated with the onset of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and even cancer. And it's very bad. The visceral fat surrounds your organs, and again, it's the most harmful type of body fat. High fructose corn syrup and sugar have also been shown to drive inflammation. Inflammation is associated with many diseases, cancer, heart disease, you name it. And the inflammation, also, of course, obesity, diabetes. In addition to inflammation, excess fructose may increase harmful substances called advanced glycation end products, which I did a video on. Advanced glycation end products involves the deposition of sugar into protein structures, which weakens the protein structures, stiffens them. A lot of these signs of aging, the stiffness, inability to move, where you feel just stiff and tight, that's from a buildup of advanced glycation end products in the body. It's a major cause of aging. Also causes wrinkling of the skin, aging of the skin, and fructose in high amounts promotes that. In other words, fructose will age you in excess amounts. Particularly high fructose corn syrup, because it's the refined form, will age you much faster than normal. One study had healthy adults drink beverages containing either glucose or fructose. When comparing the two groups, the fructose drink did not stimulate regions of the brain that control appetite to the same extent as glucose. And the reason for this is might surprise a lot of people, because glucose stimulates insulin right away. Now, insulin has a bad reputation of, promoting fat and all that. But one of the lesser-known effects of insulin is that it turns off your appetite. In other words, insulin turns off your appetite, especially in the brain. So when you eat something that's high in fructose, like high fructose corn syrup, you don't get that insulin. Fructose does not, fructose, especially fructose itself, does not stimulate a great insulin response. So you don't get that insulin appetite suppressing effect, and you wind up eating more than normal. And you wind up gaining body fat and all kinds of other problems related to excess fructose intake. Now, what are the foods that contain high fructose corn syrup? Like I said, it's all over the place. Foods that contain high fructose corn syrup include soda, candy, sweetened yogurt, salad dressing, frozen convenient foods such as TV dinners and pizzas, bread, canned fruit, juice, boxed dinners, granola bars, which are junk. People think granola bars are healthy. They're not. Breakfast, they're loaded with sugar. Breakfast cereal, sauces and condiments such as ketchup, which is, some ketchups today, because of the bad reputation of high fructose corn syrup, a lot of brands of ketchup are advertising not that they don't contain high fructose corn syrup. If you have to use ketchup, get the ones without high fructose corn syrup, because the ones that contain it contain a really good amount of it. So unless you use like a teaspoon of ketchup, you could wind up eating a lot of high fructose corn syrup if you use a lot of ketchup. Condiments, snack foods such as chips, cookies, crackers, a lot of nutrition bars, surprisingly. You look at the label, it might say high fructose corn syrup. It's a common sweetener in those things. Coffee creamers often are loaded with high fructose corn syrup. Sports drinks And recovery drinks could be high fructose corn syrup. Ice cream could be high in fructose corn syrup. So, all of these things are high in high fructose corn syrup. What I suggest people do is, whenever you're not sure of a food or anything you're buying in the supermarket, something like that, read the ingredient label. Now, the law decrees that ingredients must be listed in order of content. In other words, the first ingredients on any ingredient label, that's what the product is largely composed of. Now, if you look at a product, for example, where you see high fructose corn syrup, it's like next to last or all the way at the bottom of the list, that means it hardly has any. And it's probably not that big a problem unless you eat a ton of it. The lower on the list of ingredients high fructose corn syrup is, the better it is. The higher, if it's like in the top 3, that means the product is loaded with high fructose corn syrup, and you want to avoid it because, again, it's everywhere. And and like I say, small amounts of it, are probably not that dangerous. The problem is that it's found in so many different foods that you wind up getting an overabundance of it, and that's where you get the health problems like fatty liver, heart problems, and all that stuff. It's because of the accumulation of all these different foods. Of course, the best way to avoid it is to simply avoid processed foods, which is a good rule to follow. Only natural, unprocessed foods, fruits, vegetables, protein foods. Don't eat the processed foods, because processed foods and high fructose corn syrup, like they go together. Just like the processed foods used to be loaded with the worst kind of fat, trans fat, but that was found to be such garbage that the government finally cut it down to nothing. But so you don't have much of a problem with trans fats anymore. But now you still have the problem with high fructose corn syrup, and that's going to be around for a while because it's made from corn. And, there's a lot of politics behind, the corn industry and lobbyists, this and that. They put out videos about how high fructose corn syrup is actually healthy for you and all this. You might have seen some of these. That's all garbage. But it's $1 billion industry, so don't expect high fructose corn syrup to be removed from foods like trans fat was. It's not going to happen because of big money behind it. And so that's about it. I'll have a lot more about the health effects of fructose. There's a lot more to say about it that I can't go into in this video. Otherwise, the video would be 6 hours long. But I will be discussing it in my Applied Metabolics newsletter, which is an excellent source of information for anybody who wants in-depth knowledge about nutrition, exercise science, hormonal therapy, ergogenic aids, anti-aging research you can use today, fat loss techniques that really work, women's health and fitness. Many of these topics, I cover more topics in my Applied Metabolics newsletter than any other digital newsletter on the internet. And it's all solid, evidence-based. I'm not trying to sell you anything but information. I don't push any products on anyone. I'm not associated with any nutrition supplement company like many of these experts are. You'll see how they sneak in advertisements. A lot of these exercise videos, you wonder why are these guys putting out the exercise videos, and then you find they sneak in an ad there, for their product. They're not doing you any favors. They're doing the videos to sell their products. That's their motivation. I am not associated with any product other than my newsletter, and it's not expensive at all. It's about the price of a cup of coffee at what is it called? I forget the name of the coffee place, but the Starbucks. It's about a latte, whatever they call it. It's about the same price. It's something comes out to something like, if I remember correctly, it's something like 32 cents a day. That's what my newsletter costs. I mean, if you can't afford that, then I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I mean, 32 cents a day is too expensive. Geez, I lose that. I lose more than that pocket change every day. But anyway, so subscribe today, www.appliedmetabolics.com. When you subscribe, I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where every day I post new information on nutrition, exercise science, general medicine, and health. I also answer questions to people on my Applied Metabolics Facebook page. But again, you have to be a subscriber to join that particular. It's a private Facebook page. I also have an email portal on my Applied Metabolics webpage, strictly for subscribers, current subscribers only. They can send me short questions about anything they read in the newsletter or any other questions that come to mind, as long as they're short questions that don't require, a 10-page answer. For that, I'd have to do a consult. I don't have the time to do that. But I'll answer short questions of current subscribers. That's like a bonus I give for subscribing to my newsletter. You'll find that a lot of the people that have these publications, they won't answer your questions. I will for my subscribers, but only my subscribers. Speaking of that, you're welcome to leave comments underneath these videos, particularly if you have suggestions for future videos. But I was answering some questions. Occasionally, I would answer questions that were left in the comment section, but I'm not going to do that anymore. I will only answer questions of current subscribers because I only have a limited amount of time, and I'm not going to answer, So you're welcome to leave questions. If somebody else wants to answer them, they're welcome to. But I'm not going to. I'm not going to promise answering any questions that are left under these videos. I know that I say this in every video, Yet every time I post one of these videos, I get at least 20 questions under the videos, and I'm telling you, other people wind up answering, but I can't. I don't have the time, and my time is devoted to the people that support my work, which is my subscribers. They come first. So just fair warning. I just don't want to mislead anybody. So that's about it. If you want to have the best friend, let me give you the address again: www.appliedmetabolics.com. And it comes out the first of the month. It's 40 to 50 pages, just solid information. You won't find this information anywhere else, I guarantee you. I cover topics that nobody else does. I don't cover the usual topics like how to bench press 60 pounds more, how to build bigger arms. I leave that for the bodybuilding magazines, which I got away from 20 years ago. I don't write for them anymore. Maybe I'm jaded. I just have no interest in that stuff. My interest is in the more important things, the things that are more practical and useful, and that's what you'll find in Applied Metabolics. I do, of course, discuss training, but not that basic nonsense that you can find anywhere. You can go to YouTube videos and find that. I'm not going to waste time writing about that stuff. Okay, so that's about it. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. Take care.